Good afternoon, everyone. I want to start us out with a story from way back when we could go outside. It was a couple of years ago. I had the opportunity to go on a cruise to the Caribbean with my family. We stopped at 7 different islands over the course of 11 days, and it was paradise. Each island was special in its own way, boasting magnificent beauty and incredible beaches. But there was one particular island that stood out to me like no other, and it was the island of Curacao. Okay, so me and some of my cousins decided to go on a tour, to get a tour guide to take us around the island so that we could see everything that there was to see. And let me tell you, there were incredible mountains and huge cliffs that broke into the water. The tour guide took us to a beach with pure white coral sand. I mean, the breeze was so delicate and refreshing. It almost felt as though it was lifting me off of my feet. And the water, oh, the water was the most vibrant blue I had ever seen. I could see straight to the bottom of the ocean with my naked eye. Everything was going well in Curacao. But then our tour guide decided that he wanted to show us more places. So we packed back into the car and started on our way, stopping from place to place. But I couldn't help but notice that the hour was getting later and later, and we were getting further and further from the boat. You see, the boat was scheduled to leave at 7:30 p.m. And if you know anything about cruise ships, you know that when it's time to go, it's time to go. They will leave you, okay? The ship is taking off. So as the hour was getting later and later and the time of departure was getting closer and closer, anxiety was building up inside of me because I could not see how we would get from where we were to where we needed to be in time. We urged our tour guide, please take us back to the boat. But as he turned around to take us back to where we were supposed to be, we were met with rush hour traffic. Time was ticking and we were barely making any progress at all. It's 7:22 p.m. So now I'm tapping into my Brene Brown. I'm like, let me try to control what I can control. Let me, get my stuff together, gather my belongings. And that's when I realized that I'd left my passport on the ship. Suddenly, this place that was once paradise started to feel like prison. It's 7:27, still in traffic. It's 7:30, and we are still stuck in traffic. So I decide that my only option was to abandon the tour guide and run as fast as I could to the boat. So I got out of the car and I ran and I ran and I ran, literally praying that the boat would still be there, hoping that I would still be able to make it to my destination. I went up, down, and around the corner, and there it was. The ship was still there, and the door of the ship was still open, and standing on the pier, jumping up and down, waving at us were our parents. I ran, threw myself into their arms, and shimmied my way onto the boat. And as I stood there safely, it dawned on me that the only reason me and my cousins made it to our destination was because there were people who'd made it there before us. And those people were willing to do everything possible to make sure that we made it on the boat as well. That's what this event is all about. People who've made it there before us, taking the time to reach back and make sure that we make it too. Welcome to today's Black Like Me Story Slam. My name is Garrison Hayes, and I am the chief storyteller for today. This event is being produced by Diverse by Design. Diverse by Design, powered by Scholas and ITSMF, promotes solution-driven conversations about diversity, equity, and inclusion within tech. It produces meaningful content that empowers C-suite leaders to make both valuable and socially impactful decisions in the business space, and provides access to sophisticated, customized training and talent sourcing solutions to meet companies' talent demands while transforming the diversity landscape of their organizations. Listen, representation matters. Storytelling changes lives. We are narrative beings. So when we hear story, it does something to us. It broadens our scopes. Today, we will hear from 4 storytellers, all IT professionals creating massive impact both in their places of work and in their communities at large. So let's jump right on into it. Our first storyteller is Nicole Keaton Hart. Nicole is an experienced, influential leader and cultural change agent in information technology who drives transformational initiatives. With over 25 years expertise in IT, Nicole is a proven visionary and pragmatic leader. She has held senior key leadership and C-level roles such as Senior Vice President for SunTrust Bank and the former Chief Information Officer for Fulton County Government. She currently serves as an executive in residence at Georgia State University's Robinson College of Business. In addition, she is a board member, CEO, and doctorate of business administration candidate at Drexel University. Nicole Keaton Hart, thanks for being here. Tell your story.
Thank you for that warm and lengthy introduction. I'll start and I'll jump right in with my story. You know, not long ago, I was recruited by a Fortune 500 company for my expertise, helping organizations, whether startup or Fortune 500, solve some of their most complex technology problems. In that role and in that capacity, I would be a member of the CIO's executive leadership team, and it would go without saying that there wouldn't be many people of color, many African Americans that would hold that seat in the organization at that level, perhaps 2 or so in an organization with more than 25,000 employees. I would lead a multi-million-dollar cross-enterprise initiative that would succeed in its mission and its goal, and allow the firm to maintain its conservative reputation, brand posture, while preserving shareholder value. And, you know, my performance as it was evaluated at that time in the organization, performance reviews would reflect that my performance rating was a 4.97 out of a possible 5. And so with that, I would be one of the top performers of the organization. And in fact, in the top 1% of the organization's leadership, ranked within the top 250 employees out of a total employee population of 25,000. But there would be, however, 2 points of feedback that would direct and shape my professional growth and my career with that organization. You see, the first level of feedback would be that as an executive of the organization, I should wear fewer dark colors, that I should not wear so many blue, black, gray, or navy business suits. Now understand, this feedback wasn't directed towards whether my attire as an executive leader was appropriate or not, but very pointed in my choice of color of the suit that I would wear as an executive leader who was in the top 1% of the organization's performers. And second, the second point of feedback would be that I needed to dumb down. And we'll take a step back from that. And, you know, as the conversation would progress, it would be coined that perhaps dumbing down wasn't just the right phrase, that I needed to find a way to be less smart. And we're not talking about the ability to communicate effectively or efficiently with organizational leaders. We're not talking about the ability to drive change and substantially impact business outcomes, but rather we were talking about setting aside my uniqueness in the way that I approach technology problem solving. We were talking about setting aside the way that I would, with a creative mindfulness, approach strategy development. And this would become necessary in order to create opportunity for my peers. The company imperative was that I should be less smart so that there would be more opportunity for my peers. You know, and to me, the logical answer would be if you have someone that's a go-getter, they're able to drive organizational change and achieve meaningful outcomes, why not mentor others up and allow them to achieve the same levels of success? However, that wasn't the desire of the organization. It was made very clear that the option for me moving forward was to be less smart, so that way my peers would have more opportunity. And as you can imagine, that conversation as those conversations would unfold, there would be great disappointment. And if I can be totally honest, in fact, hurt. I helped an organization achieve things that they weren't certain was possible. And, you know, when I did that, the disappointment, the hurt, the feeling of betrayal was real. You know, my uniqueness and my talent was good enough to solve a particular problem, but it wasn't good enough or appropriate to establish my longevity in that organization. My legacy would become defined by my ability to be less smart or dumbed down, rather than contributing to the organization in a meaningful way. Oh, by the way, while wearing business suits that were not black, blue, navy, or gray. And, you know, because I had often pursued opportunities with a great deal of intentionality, I knew that I am unapologetically who I am. And I knew there would be no future place for me in this organization. And whether the bias was conscious or unconscious, whether it stemmed from the hues of my clothing or the pigments of my complexion or gender perception in terms of what women leaders wear in corporate, it mattered none. I knew that I had to begin working on my exit strategy and moving forward to continue to harness the gifts and the talents that I brought to that organization and would bring to organizations of the future.
Thank you so much, Nicole. I have one question for you. Thank you so much for that story, sharing about your experience. I mean, so much of what you're talking about is really in this intersectionality conversation. And you mentioned your uniqueness. So my question is, how do you protect your uniqueness when you are in a hostile environment?
You know, and I think that's a great question. I think it takes the time to be intentional with your actions. And so when I was faced with that situation, when I mentioned I started building my exit strategy, that meant that I would use the opportunity to build my professional development plan to gain even more skills that I didn't have that would help me in my next career and my next journey. And I think it's important that we never sacrifice or compromise the value that we offer for someone else's personal gain.
Yeah, wow, that's beautiful. And I see some people already here in the chat saying thank you for your story. Can you talk a little bit about, you kind of talked about how you were going to help kind of create more Nicoles. What did that look like in your organization?
You know, it was interesting because, you know, oftentimes when you're the only woman of color in technology or the only person of color in technology, you begin working and growing the organization in a very different way. And frankly, you work harder, I think, at building relationships and managing perception. But I learned over the journey of my career that personal perception was not what I would focus on, that I needed to focus on what the professional perception of me was and the value that I was delivering in turn back to the organization.
That's wonderful. Hey, thank you so much for sharing your story, Nicole. We're going to keep it moving. Thank you, everyone who is saying thank you to Nicole and our storytellers in the chat. Thank you so much. So we're going to keep it moving on to our very next storyteller, who is Vincent Shorter. Vincent is the global IT director of the Abbott Laboratories Abbott Diagnostics division. Currently, Vincent leads a global IT strategy team that focuses on innovative business solutions for supply chain, manufacturing, professional services, and quality for Abbott Diagnostics division. Vincent is a lifetime member of the Military Officers Association, the BDPA Technology Organization, and Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity, Inc. Throughout his career, he has focused on being a solutions-oriented leader that empowers his team. Vincent, thank you so much for being here. We're going to turn it over to you to tell your story.
Thank you, Garrison. Appreciate it. So it happened again. I just left the military and I had been in corporate for about 5 years. Another one of my peers got one of the coveted business-facing roles. I didn't understand. What was I not doing? I was getting good evaluations, the typical things. You're doing a good job. Keep doing what you're doing. We're glad you're here, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm not getting the opportunity. So what's going on? Now, I will say this. The people that were getting those opportunities were typically white and male. And so I struggled with where I sat in the organization, understanding that I'm not getting those opportunities. But I remember attending a seminar where a speaker talked about your brand and understanding your brand and your image. And so one of the things she said was, what you might want to do is find out, how do others see you? You know how you see yourself, but how do others see you? So I remember I was going to have a one-on-one session with one of the vice presidents. It was a rainy day. I was looking out of my office on the 4th floor. And when I got him on the phone, I said, Jim, when you think about Vincent, what do you think? He said, well, operationally, you're very strong. You've gone into several divisions and turned things around. You're a great communicator, both written and oral and written. Good thing he didn't say I was articulate. Some of you will get that. But this is the thing. He said, you're doing a good job. Keep doing what you're doing. And I said, well, Jim, the role that I really want is a business-facing IT role. And he said, well, I've never seen you in that role. The quandary. If I don't get an opportunity, how are you ever going to see me in it? So, but I understood in terms of what he was saying. So later on, I was playing golf with a mentor of mine, and I was sharing the story with him. And I said, Fred, you know, I'm frustrated because I feel like I'm doing a good job. I'm getting good evaluations, but I'm not getting those key roles, those opportunities. And so what he shared with me was this. He said, they need to see you differently than they see you now, i.e., I've got a brand, but I need to be able to show a different side of me, a side that that's different than what they see. And so there was an opportunity, as he was telling me, try to volunteer for something outside of your normal day-to-day job. And so there was an opportunity as we were going through an IT transformation to be on a change management team. And so I volunteered to be on the change management team. Well, lo and behold, I became the lead of that change management team. And it gave me an opportunity to brief the executive IT leadership team every other week on something that was not part of my role. Operational excellence, if you will. Something was a little bit more nebulous. So the next time a role became available, I shared with my VP, hey, there's a supply chain business facing role. I'm really interested and I'd like to get that role. Now, he said, hey, you know, you're great for the role, but I'll talk to the executive IT team. So he met with the executive IT team, came back and said, the role is yours. Almost fell out of my chair. What happened? I got the role. In that process, I learned really 3 key things. One is, I know how I see myself, but am I willing to take that risk of asking others how they see me, i.e. my brand or my image? Number 2, that volunteer role in change management gave me exposure beyond my organization. It gave me exposure really to some senior level people in the organization. And then finally, control what you can control. I know what I saw in terms of who was getting those roles. I can't control this, but I could control what I do. And that's what I chose to do. So thank you.
Thank you. Wow. I mean, I took so many notes throughout the last two stories. I mean, first of all, thank you so much for your service to our country. We very much appreciate that. Of course, people in the chat, you can say thank you to Vincent for everything, not just his service, but for this incredible story and his experience. A couple of the things that really stood out to me is it sounds a lot like you were betting on yourself. I mean,
Yes.
It really sounds like you said, I know what I can do, so I'm going to bet on myself. How do you build the confidence to be able to make that kind of bet on yourself?
Yeah, it's interesting because you come by that sometimes by being knocked down. There's a lot to that story. I didn't talk about sitting in my car thinking, do I really want to go in there today? Right? And thinking, do I really want to do this? I didn't talk about how I refreshed my resume because I'm going to try to find something else. But as I learned and grew, I realized that there are things that I can control and I got to drive them because that's all I can do. I can only do what I can control.
Yeah, that's great. I have another, another question about confidence, which you talked about talking to one of your supervisors and getting that feedback about how people are, how they're perceiving you. Talk to us a little bit about that. That is a hurdle for many of us to overcome.
Yeah.
So please.
Yeah, that's risky, right? That's risky. And it's almost like if you've got a spouse or significant other, you might not want to hear their perception of you. You definitely don't want to hear the other people at work's perception of you, but it's a risk. But you also have to, two things with that. One is you need to talk to somebody that you believe is going to be honest with you. And two, you can't have a yeah, but. I hear what you're saying, yeah, but, because that's their perception. And you've got to take that and then figure out how do you do something different to be able to change that perception, because everyone's got a perception of us.
Yeah, that's wonderful, Vincent. I'm seeing here in the chat, Charles Kamak said specifically that this is a bit introspective. There's some internal work that's been done here to be ready for this moment that you're going after. And I think he's exactly right. So thank you so much for your story. Of course, everyone say thank you to Vincent. Thank you so much for sharing. We're going to keep it moving here to our very next storyteller. Her name is Angel Johnson. Angel is a speaker, technologist, cybersecurity professional, panelist, crypto and real estate investor, and IT leader. She's directing a mobile app and infrastructure teams to success. She is a self-taught stock market, real estate, and cryptocurrency investor and has a love and passion for technology. Angel is currently a cybersecurity specialist, project director for the 10kproject.com, an ecosystem where everyday people can invest in Black-owned businesses. That's awesome. She is also governor for guapcoin.org, which is a Black-owned cryptocurrency. On top of all that, she is also working on structuring hotel acquisitions and deals. Angel, we're so delighted to have you here. Tell us your story.
Thank you. Thank you. That was wonderful, Garrison. I was blushing and tearing up just listening to you. Hi, everyone. I'm Angel Johnson. I'm excited to be here to share my journey. There aren't too many Black women in tech, and so I hope you're able to take a nugget or two with you along the way. I was born in North Philadelphia to my mother who had me at 17. I was surrounded by love growing up in the house with my grandmother, my mom, my aunt, my uncle. Naturally, most 17-year-olds still live at home. So when my mother got pregnant, while she was still in high school, living with her family. For college, I decided to go to Morgan State for 2 years and then transferred back to Philly and graduated from Temple University. I took a few computer classes at Morgan and then decided on majoring in computer information systems. It was hard for me, y'all. I was not super techie. I didn't know anyone in tech or know anyone who was passionate about tech or anyone majoring in tech. But my intuition told me that this major was for me. I loved most of my classes, but struggled through C++. Okay, struggle might be an understatement. C++ kicked my butt. One day, the chair of the department at Temple University called me into his office. And so, naturally, you're like, oh, wow, the chair is calling me into the office. And so I sat down and he told me that I should switch my major. And so, I didn't have pearls on, but had I had some pearls on, I would have clutched them. Switch my major. I was devastated. All my other computer classes had gone relatively well outside of the C++ class. And so this example is a story of using haters to motivate you to success. Now, when he called me into his office and told me he thought I should switch my major, it was hurtful. But at that moment, I realized I had two choices. I could, one, quit, change my major to business administration, which would have been fine. Nothing's wrong with business administration. Or I could find a way to pass that C++ class and advance through the major. I did choose to move forward with the major, despite the chair of the department recommending against it. What I did was I found another instructor who was kind, she was patient, she wanted the best for me. And so I took the class again for the second time. I did not do well the first time, so I did in fact have to take it again for the second time. When I took the class for the second time, I actually passed it. I did not, this is not the story where I tell you how I got an A and, it was butterflies and birds chirping. I did not, but I did pass it. And passing, I think was with a C or B minus or something was enough to move forward with the major. In May 2000, I graduated from Temple University with a degree in computer information systems. I actually received the highest starting salary that Temple University had seen in the School of Business up until that point. And so what this story represents is that in life presents many roadblocks consistently. There's no way to get around the roadblocks. No matter how kind you are, how loving, how smart, there's no way to get around the roadblocks. Majoring in technology, though, has changed my life, my family's life, my daughter's life, and ultimately will allow me to leave a legacy behind. I've been able to use tech to leverage my tech career to diversify into crypto, gold, silver, platinum, real estate, stock market, businesses, and then later this year, I'm looking to invest in a hotel as well as build my dream home. And, I have to just kind of give a shout out to hotel ownership because that is something that never in my wildest imagination did I think growing up in Philadelphia poor that I would be able to own a hotel. And so, my story is all about if I can do it, you can as well. Dream big and don't let anyone tell you or imply that just because you come from a certain place, have a certain background, or because your skin is a certain color, that you cannot achieve everything that you've been put here to do. Good luck, and don't hesitate to reach out directly on LinkedIn with any questions you may think of. I'm here. Garrison spoke about, having people ahead of you that can help you along, can answer those questions. I didn't have that. I went off of my own intuition and it led me to this space. But now you have people who are here, who are ahead of you, who are eager to help. And I'm definitely one of those people. Thank you.
Angel, thank you so much. I know that everyone will be just round of applause right now for all of our storytellers so far. Angel, you've been, that was incredible. First of all, shout out to Philly, shout out to Baltimore, shout out to our HBCUs. Okay, I had to throw that in there for the audience and for the people. I'm from Atlanta, but that's a different story. Anyway, we're gonna move on. We're gonna keep it moving. Okay, listen, I have a lot of things kind of going through my mind listening to you. You talked about getting a second opinion. I work in diversity and inclusion pipeline programs, and I can't tell you how many people of color in STEM get told to choose a different career, to different major.
Correct.
Talk to us about how you were able to push through that and what went into your decision to find someone to get that second opinion?
You know, it's funny. It's such a good question, Garrison, because I was hurt. You know, I had worked really hard to get to that point. And you know, I made jokes about C++ kicking my butt, but it really did. It was a humbling moment. And so, you know, that was the perfect time for the chair of the department to lean in and to say, okay, you know, this is a Black girl. There were not many Black women coming through this program. And so this was a great opportunity for him to extend a little courtesy. And I'll never forget that the instructor who helped me was a woman. And she was Arab and Muslim. And I thought that she had such a way of kindness and love. I had never met her before, but she is the one who chose to say, you know what, I can help you through this. I can help you understand. And I was never a C++ expert. Don't get it twisted, Garrison. But what I was able to do was to understand it enough to move forward. And so that's why I talked about and mentioned intuition, because there was a nagging something inside of my spirit. I didn't know how lucrative the career would be. I didn't know that it would allow me to invest in real estate in Philly and to do this crypto thing and to do the hotel thing. I had no idea any of those things. But what I did have was that nagging feeling in my soul that said, stick to it. You know, and he was the chair. So I couldn't go any higher in that department. And so, you know, I just said, you know, I respectfully disagree. You know, I hear what you're saying. And also I had done well in all the other classes. And so had I not, if I had done, you know, poorly in all the other classes, then maybe I would have said, you know what, Angel, this is just not for you. But I did well and I enjoyed them and I liked the other classes. I just could not get my head wrapped around that one particular class. And so there's a mixture of intuition, a mixture of knowing who you are. And that's why I talk about my upbringing, because when you are surrounded as children, it's really important to surround them with love. And I grew up in a household full of love. And so, you know, when one person steps against me, that's fine, because I know I have a village behind me. And so I want everybody to remember that, because it's going to come. Everybody is going to encounter, unfortunately, we live in a very racist society. And so everyone is going to encounter these types of examples. And you have to be equipped knowing who you are and remembering that so that you can push past it and move on to excellence, because you can't see it right now, but excellence is further down the road for all of us.
That's wonderful. That's great. I mean, I'm hearing several things. I'm hearing a lesson for our senior leaders to lean in and to help those who are kind of struggling, instead of saying like, you know, maybe this isn't for you. There's an opportunity there that you're talking about. And of course, I'm hearing reach out for those who are going through it, those who are in the doldrums. Reach out to someone. And Angel, I know that you're one of those people who people can find. You mentioned it earlier. They can find you on LinkedIn. They can reach out to you. All of our storytellers are just those kinds of people. Okay, I'm going to ask one more question because we have a little bit of time. Selfishly here, is it too late to get into crypto? I mean, a lot of people feel it's too late, and you're an expert. So please talk to us about that.
It's not, and I don't know how many minutes I have. You know, I'm hoping I have one, but it is not. We are still in the crypto space, and actually, this is my plea to everyone to please, you know, dig into it, poke around in it. I started looking into it myself in 2017. In 2018, I set out and went to a conference. And my job at the time, I was at Marriott, and they sent me to a Black MBA conference to speak to vend on behalf of Marriott. And so I get to the conference. There was a brother who was on a panel speaking about cryptocurrency. I had already done some research. I talked to him, same thing you just asked, is it too late? Am I, I don't know what I'm doing. He said, jump in. I'm gonna tell everybody, jump in. We're always the last to jump in on everything. Please jump in now. It's still early adoption. I decided to study and take advantage of 10 different coins, learning about them, and I invested and bought 100 of those 10 coins. Then the following year, I decided to get involved in a project. I found out that there was a Black owned coin, Guap coin. And so that's another one. Please scribble it down to do some follow-up research. And so we actually have our own coin. And so I decided to join that foundation to help out, to drive forward, because this gives us an opportunity and puts us in a position where we are at the table on the crypto space.
Thank you for that. I'm hearing two things, two takeaways. One, got to be willing to take some risks here, but it's a calculated risk because you're going to do your research. You're going to find out what's out there and make a decision. Angel, thank you so much for telling your story.
And thank you, everybody.
Incredible. Now, we actually have a second Angel here to tell a story. Angel Henry. Angel Henry has a passion for diversity in the field of IT. Her knowledge of why women and minorities are oftentimes missing from the C-suite provides awareness for IT leaders to drive change. Angel has over 20 years of IT experience, primarily in the pharmaceutical and healthcare industries, and over 15 years in the project management discipline. She has become a recognized thought leader on the topic of the agile mindset, which fosters an environment of innovation and productivity. Angel is also a self-taught trainer and speaker, as well as an adjunct instructor in the Indianapolis area, helping students realize their full potential in the field of IT. She is a member of several professional and community organizations such as BDPA, Information Technology, Senior Management Forum, Executive, that's ITSMF, Agile Indy, Women in Agile, and the Zeta Phi Beta Sorority, Inc. Angel enjoys swimming and is an avid reader of Christian fiction novels. Angel's married to Deshaun Henry with a daughter, Mariah, and a son, DJ. Okay, Angel's first book, Dents in the Ceiling, is a summary of the experiences of 30 African-American women working in the tech industry, and it's coming soon. You're about to hear from Angel. Thank you so much for being here. Tell us your story.
Thank you so much for that introduction. Looks like I'm bringing up the rear here after all of those amazing stories. Well, again, I'm Angel Henry, and my story is entitled, I Am Determined to Get Along with Paul. So picture it, it's Monday morning. I'm just back from maternity leave with having baby number 2. Again, his name is DJ and he's 5 now. But my supervisor at the time was explaining to me the 2 programs that I would be running. But she grabbed my arm, pulled me close to her, reached down and said, but Paul is assigned to one of your programs. Well, I didn't have to ask many more questions than that. I mean, her body language, tone of voice, facial expression said it all. See, Paul came with a bit of a reputation. I was introduced to Paul a couple of weeks before I started maternity leave, and he was my cube mate. He was the senior architect to our mid-sized healthcare IT firm. So now Paul's assigned to one of my programs, and I am determined to get along with Paul. But about 2.5 months into that first program, sure enough, Paul and I bump heads. See, Paul has laid out a systems architect design that is for a large financial upgrade to our department. And it includes 2 integrations. That means 2 vendors are involved. Well, the implementation team and neither vendor think that Paul's design can be implemented. So I get to work. I gather my data, I interview the implementation team, I interview both vendors, I lay out all of the risks and issues and come up with mitigation strategies for all of those. I go to share them with Paul, but he's not interested in hearing it. So it results in an escalation. I have to go to the head IT director. Well, that meeting resulted in the director crossing his arms, leaning back and saying, I'll let you 2 work it out. Well, to me, that meant the little black girl's making sense, but I'm not willing to risk it. I'll let somebody else make that decision. But I'm determined to get along with Paul. So I set up a meeting, just him and I, one-on-one. I'll never forget it. It was Wednesday morning, 8:45 a.m. I'm sitting in the conference room by myself, waiting for him to arrive. I have all the data laid out and I am going over all the facts. I mean, I'm more than willing to compromise with him because I'm determined to get along with Paul. Well, he walks in and slings his book bag on the floor. And before I can even say a word, he holds up his hand and says, "Angel, I hear the changes that you're proposing to make, but you're just the project manager. Go implement what I have already put out." I'm just the project manager? I mean, it was the way he said it. It was as if I was dirt on his shoe. He had regulated me to no more than the project team's secretary, clearly not his equal in leading this team. In that moment, I realized that although I was determined to get along with Paul, Paul was determined not to get along with me. So I put both hands on the table. I took a deep breath. I smiled and I said, "Okay." I gathered up my papers and went back to my cube. I shot off 2 emails, one to the implementation team, letting them know that we would be executing against Paul's original architectural design. The second to Marty, the recruiter. She reached out to me while I was on maternity leave. I was letting her know that I would be sending her my updated resume by that evening. And Marty came through. She helped me land a manager role at another company. Fast forward, I'm now senior director at Genesys in their professional services department, leading a global team of agile coaches, and we're having a pretty fun time doing it. Now, I don't know what happened to Paul, but I do know he's no longer senior architect at that firm. There are 3 key lessons that I want you to remember from my experience with Paul. 1, nurture your network and make sure it's wide and diverse. I'm talking multiple races, ethnicities, cultures, and make sure those that are a different gender than you are included. 2nd, from that diverse network that you're going to create for yourself, make sure you have a personal board of directors. On that board is going to be an advisor, a mentor, and a sponsor. Now, if you don't know what those 3 roles are or how best to leverage them for where you're at in your career journey, I suggest 2 resources. 1, Carla Harris, Expect to Win, and 2, Sylvia Ann Hewitt, Forget a Mentor, Find a Sponsor. And lastly, put imposter syndrome out of your mind. You have skills and experience and a perspective that is unique and valuable. Don't ever let a Paul diminish that for you. So it's my hope that you remember these lessons when you encounter a Paul along your career journey. Thank you.
I will be the audience today and just clap it up. Oh my goodness. I mean, there's a theme that I'm picking up on throughout these stories, which is to know your worth, know your value. And Angel, thank you so much for that story. Just really honing in on that. First of all, what a plot twist. I thought you were going to get along with Paul. That's what I thought was going to happen here.
I tried.
But you tried your best, and really that lesson is knowing your value and knowing when to pivot. And so that's great. Now, Paul was very disrespectful, and I'm so glad that you did what you did. My question really has to do with agility. You know, as I'm thinking through agile thinking and what it means to be an agile leader, what I've internalized is the ability to kind of roll with the punches and change. But your story, it is a rolling with the punches, but it seems that you were willing to more so pivot and go in a different direction. Can you talk to us about about agile leadership and how to be agile as leaders?
Absolutely. So having an agile mindset is all about collaboration and expecting change, just being prepared for it. And so I picked that story because I was prepared. I had learned my lesson from previous encounters and situations and microaggressions and being in toxic work environments, that my network is key. So I was fortunate at that point in my career to have a wonderful network of vast supporters and people willing to help me. And so being prepared for anything at any time is key, right? And you hit the nail on the head, know your worth. I mean, getting with a coach, a sponsor, a mentor, all these people to help you to show up to your best self at work and to others is important. But sometimes we just have to realize that if we're in a toxic work environment, it's not worth our health. I mean, I witnessed so many of my counterparts going on leave, mental health leave as African-American women. And I cannot be more serious. Hair falling out, acne, stress, to the point where they're going to seeing doctors and they're on medicine because of the level of microaggression and heaviness that they are taking on at work. If it gets to that point where it's that heavy and that toxic and it is doing harm to your mental well-being, then it's time to make a serious move. And your network will help you land softly like mine did.
Thank you. You mentioned 2 books, and I know we have to keep it going here. We have Nia coming up as our Director of Diverse by Design. But Angel, you mentioned 2 books. Would you mind saying those one more time for our audience?
Sure. These books helped me tremendously. One, Carla Harris, Expect to Win, and Sylvia Ann Hewitt, Forget a Mentor, Find a Sponsor.
Thank you so much, Angel. Thank you to all of our storytellers. Your stories matter. And we now know our stories matter too, to our attendees. Your stories matter. Listen, we have Nia Darville, the Director of Diverse by Design here. It's been a pleasure to be with you all today. And Nia, thank you so much.
Thank you, Garrison. I think all of us should just do a virtual round of applause for all of our storytellers. And Garrison, you are a masterful chief storyteller today. So thank you for guiding us through this Black Like Me Story Slam experience. We don't take your stories for granted. At Diverse by Design, we believe that investing in diversity and inclusion isn't just a philanthropic principle. It simply makes good business sense. Significant research shows that a diverse and inclusive workplace tends to provide better staff engagement, higher productivity, and less turnover, as well as increased innovation and profitability. If you are a leader in your organization, we want to empower you to move from conversation to action and meet with you to help your organization figure out how to do just that. Schedule a consultation with us to learn how your organization can become diverse by design by visiting our website at www.diversebydesign.org. Before we go, I want to thank Diverse by Design's corporate sponsors, Google, Tech Systems, JP Morgan Chase, Comcast, and Chubb for their support. And most of all, I want to thank you for joining us.